In this episode, I'm going to be talking with entrepreneur and gender equality activist Shelley Zalis. In the process of building and selling her own successful company, Shelley saw firsthand how underrepresented women were at the highest levels of business. This led her to found the Female Quotient with a goal to end the gender gap sooner than the 131 years, which is currently being predicted by the World Economic Forum. Welcome, Shelley. Hi, Shelley. Great to have you on this episode. Thank you so much for joining me.
I'm so excited to be here with you, Tania.
And I suppose let's just jump straight in. I'd love to just hear a bit about how and why you started the Female Quotient.
You know what? It was an accident, actually. I was the only female CEO, top 25 in market research, actually online research. Have you ever taken a survey on the internet? An online
Yes.
survey? So sorry, not sorry. I'm the mother of that invention. And after selling my company to Ipsos, and I stayed there 5 years, once again, I was an only and lonely. I was the only one of two females on a board of 25. And I was sitting on a board once again, and they were moving my employees around. I had sold my company. I had 250 employees, and I now was a part of 16,000 employees. I was, top again of a big company, and they were moving my employees around and sort of like chess pieces, and tears had come down my face. And after the meeting, and I'm now badass CEO selling my company for a lot of money in a publicly traded company, French company, and I was pulled aside after the meeting, and I was told there was no room for emotion in the boardroom. And once again, I had two options. One, be okay with that, the cognitive, think with my head, the rational, or two, do what I always do, which was, it was a heartbeat moment, ba-boom, 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 which I always follow my heart. After staying 5 years at a company that I sold my company to, deciding it was time to give back with generosity what I wish I had my entire career, which was girlfriends in business, women supporting women. And I never had that. I'm 61 years old, and I just was tired of being in a world of men. And so I left and started something called the Girls Lounge. The opposite of boy is girl. The opposite of club is lounge. If there's a boys club, now there's going to be a girls lounge, because I wanted to go to a conference called CES, Consumer Electronics Show. I heard there was 150,000 people, less than 3% were women. And I was just tired of being an only and lonely. That's what I was my entire career. It didn't hold me back because I always followed my heart. I never followed my head, the rational. I always followed the emotional, the empathy, the compassion, the passion, and I succeeded. But I always stood out from the crowd because I did what I always wanted to do. But for the first time, I decided it was time to change status quo and create the new norm. Because I didn't want other women to have to do what I had to do. And so I invited 5 girlfriends, and I said, would you walk the floor of CES with me, a technology conference? And I said, if you know other women, please invite them. And 24 hours later, 50 women showed up, and 2 remarkable things happened. And this was 10 years ago. One, every single guy's head turned, like, where the heck did all you women come from? And it's when I coined the phrase power of the pack. Women alone is power. Collectively, we have impact. Because it was just this whoosh moment. Every single guy's head turned. Like, where did all you women come from? And I didn't feel invisible. It was just making the invisible visible. And the second was I was surrounded by people just like me. We talked about work-life balance. No such thing as balance. We talked about imposter syndrome. Shut that bitch up in your head because it doesn't exist. And we did deals. We all had money. We were power women doing business with one another. We were supporting each other. And in 1 minute flat, we changed the trajectory of women not supporting women. We were supporting each other. And it was so easy and so amazing and remarkable. And the next day, 50 women turned to 100 women, and 100 women turned to 300 women. And I had the penthouse suite. My 1 bedroom turned to the penthouse suite. And I called my hairdresser in LA. I said, get in the car and meet us in Vegas. And we started doing hair and makeup in my bedroom. And we acted like women, and we dressed like women, and we took our hair down, and we took our ugly suits off, and we wore dresses, and we were not hiding. We were showing up and standing out and standing up and standing together. And it was a game-changing moment for us. And the Girls Lounge was born. And that was that. And from that moment on, I started creating pop-up spaces where women supported women in a safe, secure environment. And 10 years later, 3 million women across the world, across every industry, started supporting each other. And we changed the trajectory of how women show up in business today.
I mean, Shelley, that's incredible. And so many things that you just touched upon. I mean, I'm sort of laughing to myself also because I've been at CES and I was about to mention that the really horrible suits that seems to be the general uniform at CES. But even that point about, taking off your suits and wearing what women want to wear. And I suppose this issue, isn't there, around the stereotype of what successful women should be like and trying to fit into a man's world. And that's also part of what you're changing, right? There's a real problem there, isn't there, in terms of this idea of stereotyping on gender?
Well, you know what? What's the stereotype? Vulnerability is actually our greatest strength, but we call that soft skills. Soft skills, soft skills. They are essential skills. They are critical skills. It's all about language. And it's not female, it's feminine. These are human skills. And actually, the greatest qualities of leadership today are empathy, compassion, passion, collaboration. Those are feminine qualities. So actually, if we stopped calling them hard skills and soft skills and instead called them essential and critical skills, and if we rewrote the profiles of the best leaders today, they would be compassion, empathy, collaboration, and by the way, deliver great ROI. Who wouldn't want that leader?
Yeah, but those things have become more mainstream. You're right, communication, passion, empathy, and so on. Do you think that shift in what we expect of a successful leader is partly because they're standing on the shoulders of things like what you've done with the Equality Lounge, because we have more female leaders, or how they must be related in some way, right?
We don't have more female leaders yet, but one of the things that we need to do is start reinforcing, profiling, and acknowledging that those are the greatest strengths, and making sure that we put that front and center. Power is no longer command and control and hierarchical command over someone else. The whole new power of what power is agency over ourselves. And we need to redefine power. That is what, I'm writing that articles, I'm profiling, and why we're giving the megaphone to women and profiling women in a whole new way. And when we do that, they get written up, and that's how the algorithm changes. When you Google search CEO, when you Google search leaders in cyber, leaders in finance, leaders in construction, leaders in every single in space, you get men today because they are not profiled in the world today. They're not main stage because people say we can't find experts in these categories. Well, the more we profile and push them out there, that's how we change the algorithm. I coined the phrase 10 years ago, the algorithm for equality. 10 years ago, not even knowing that AI was going to be a thing. But now we're profiling, and that's how we change an algorithm so that when you do a Google search, you're going to see women, not just white men.
Yeah, I was about to say, and within those male CEOs, it's quite a subset, right? I remember reading a study that if you're a man with a square jaw, you're more likely to be a CEO than a man who doesn't have a square jaw, and all those other different biases. So on the profile, I suppose this idea of you can't be what you can't see as well. It's also about encouraging other women. I suppose just zooming in on what you were saying about power is around agency over yourself. For women in the workplace, because I know you talk a lot about we for we, but that also suggests to me an idea of me for me. Like I need to take control of myself, agency for myself. So what is it in a workplace that women can be doing, and what's sort of holding her back?
Well, according to the World, when I got invited, I called the Girls Lounge for the first 5 years until women started supporting women, and we were 3 million women strong. Once we had women supporting women, I dropped the girl and called it Equality Lounge, bringing men into the equation, and I called it the Equality Lounge, the place for conscious leaders. And it's not about men, it's not about women, it's about conscious leaders. I don't care, if you're a man or a woman. I care if you're a conscious leader using your power to create change. And language matters. So when we say, oh, we need male allies, that drives me absolutely crazy, because that's just giving men more power. We need leadership allies. We need leader allies. If you're in a position of power, use it. When I got invited to the World Economic Forum, my invitation was, we want you to come, but you might not feel welcome. That was the invitation to the World Economic Forum. And this was 10 years ago. I needed $250,000 to create the space. And so I went to a big financial company, to the women's division, and I said, could you sponsor our lounge? And they said, we'd be happy to, but you have to change the name, because the girls' lounge isn't going to fly at the World Economic Forum. And I said, I'm not going to change the name. It's called the Girls' Lounge, the place for the 17%. And so they wouldn't fund me. And so I funded the Girls' Lounge myself at the World Economic Forum. And by the way, my head said, don't go. Who wants to go to a place that you're not going to feel welcome? My heart said, I must, for women. I'm going to do this. And if I called it any other name, it wouldn't have resonated. It was kind of scary. And I went, and everyone came and poked their head in, like, what the heck is this Girls' Lounge at the World Economic Forum? And women that had heard of it from other places or knew of it came, and then of course 10 years later, we are a 2-story glass house, standing room only, the destination for equality at the World Economic Forum with world leaders. But the reality is, according to the World Economic Forum, it will take 131 years to close the gender gap. I mean, where will you be? Where will your children be? Where will your grandchildren be? We created the internet in 25 years. We sent men to the moon. Should have been women if we had spacesuits for them. Now we do. We created a vaccine in 1 year. We created ChatGPT in 2 weeks. Why should it take 131 years to pay Sally the same as Peter, to put women in leadership, to put Black women on boards? I mean, it is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And once I started putting comparisons of 131 years, which is just a mindset gap, people started saying, wow, you're right. That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And so my sign this year in Davos was, equality is possible if you want it. All it takes is a conscious mindset. All it takes is prioritization. All it takes is a moonshot mindset. And when I started explaining to Fortune 500 CEOs that it is the only global goal out of 17 that a CEO with intentionality can actually close in the lifetime of their leadership in their workplace with choice and priority, and they can leave this as their legacy of change, they're like, wow, that's interesting. And the gender gap is broken down by pay gap, by care gap, leadership gap, AI bias gap, workforce gap, procurement gap. Think about procurement. No one pays attention to procurement. Less than 5% of procurement goes to women-owned businesses. Let me think about that. 5%, 95%. 5%, 95%. It's actually 1%. And by the way, not because there's a lack of talent and not because there's a lack of women-owned businesses. It's legacy, legacy, legacy. That's called golf course.
For me, as a female entrepreneur who's raised quite a lot of venture capitalist funds, investors are always asking me, like, what do we do? How do we get more female entrepreneurs? It's like, everybody knows the answers. You just need the person at the top to want to do it. I mean, we don't know all the answers, but people know enough.
I mean, that's the answer. And when people say to me, oh, it's unconscious bias. I said, did you just hear what you said? You said unconscious. If you used the word unconscious, you are conscious. Once you're conscious, you have a choice. Do something about it or don't. So if you're not doing something about it, it's because you don't want to.
Hi everyone, Tania here. Just a quick favour. We'd love your feedback. If you have a moment, it would be great if you could give us a star rating. It helps others to find our podcast and means we can continue to get brilliant guests for you. Now, back to the good stuff. I suppose it's something which for Elv, we obviously we're working in the women's health space, and a lot of our women are navigating this huge life change, right? When they're going through pregnancy for the first time, we're trying to help them through that journey, help them think about themselves and help them feel good and in control of their own health and bodies. But then obviously what we see with a lot of women is when they, and I've got this experience myself, when you go back to work after having a baby, it's so hard often to make that transition. And having looked at your reports, I know you talk a lot about the messy middle. Are those kind of related? Is this where we're having a lot of problems in terms of promotions, where women are sort of in the middle part of their career and then sort of impacted massively sideways by all the invisible work they're doing at home as well?
Okay, so let's break it down. So we talked first about pay gap. There are two places that women fall off in pay that nobody is addressing. The first is in first promotion. What happens at first promotion? Women in general, we talked about imposter syndrome, don't ask for the promotion and don't ask for the raise because we're uncomfortable. Men are the first, whether they deserve it or not, they're like, I want a promotion, I want a raise, and they negotiate. And here's how much I want, and that's not enough, and I want this much more. So that's the first place the pay gap starts. The second place the pay gap happens is at maternity. When women take maternity leave, they miss their promotion and they miss the raise. So this is where we have the pay gaps and we never catch up because the men keep getting ahead. And in the United States, we know maternity leave is a big problem and paternity leave is elective. And men tend to not take paternity leave because it shows a sign of weakness. And when they do take paternity leave, they play golf. And I'm not trying to be mean, but that is the truth. So unless we have mandatory parental leave, and they'll still play golf, but unless we have that, it's not going to fix that gap. And it's such an easy fix if we actually fixed it, or if we instill the transparency laws where you shouldn't have to ask for it, it just is instilled. And so we do have solutions around the pay gap. And just for everyone tuning in, on average, women are paid 80 cents on the dollar, Black women 64 cents on the dollar, Latinas 53 cents on the dollar, and no one even talks about women from India and all that. And when I have to just say this because it drives me absolutely nuts. When we say women of color, we're basically saying non-white women, and we're lumping everyone into one category. Say Black women, say brown women, let's see everyone for what they are. And women from India are always left out of the equation completely. And care, why is it that caregiving is always by default the women's responsibility? Can we all take responsibility for care? If we shared responsibility for care, it would go a long way to equal responsibility in the workplace. Like that's a whole other conversation. And we do have solutions for care. It should not be government's responsibility. If we want the best leaders are caregivers. We do need care to be resolved in the workplace by our Fortune 500 CEOs to take that responsibility. And if we had a care wallet, there are so many benefits that companies are paying for that most employees don't even know about or care about. And let's just say there's $50,000 a year that companies are putting towards benefits, not health benefits, but benefits in general. If we gave every employee $50,000 in a care wallet to use as they wish, whether it's for self-care or elderly care or child care, that would solve the problem, by the way.
I mean, here in the UK, to your point, we have shared parental leave. So you're right. Like we have policies which you could opt into, but it's exactly like you're saying. Often the men don't take it because they still perceive it as a weakness. It's not become a mainstream action.
Yeah.
And I know I've heard you talk as well about time blocking, right? Like since COVID, obviously in general, the impact on women's work has been very negative, but there's been some positivities in terms of more flexible working. But again, it feels like men see this as a sign of weakness still, right? Or we're
Yeah,
beginning to shift back to the old,
but it's
the
crazy.
old MO.
But go to the messy middle. So the messy middle is where, in general, we lose women because it's where they start having children and it's middle management. And most women, you can't do it all. But I have to say, you can do it all your way. And so there are ways to, adjust for it. But because care is predominantly, the responsibility, which it shouldn't be, on the woman. And I do have solutions around that. I'm 61 years old. I have 3 kids. I did manage to do it all, but that's because my husband, which I call my partner, we did share care. And, we did have a whole system because we both worked through raising our children. And so there are ways to integrate. So you have 5 dimensions in your life: your career, your family, your community, your friends, and the 5th that we never talk about or focus on is ourselves, that we always seem to put ourselves not in that equation. And they're not equal slices of the pie. And so, you've got to figure that out at the different stages. I call it life stage accommodation.
And what I'm hearing from you also saying is, I think you picking up what you said before, is you can't have it all, right? So it's about compromising. I mean, that's something I tell myself is which balls am I going to drop, right?
So don't look over your shoulder at other people. You can have it all your way, but don't read the textbook because, so many people are comparing themselves to everybody else. That will make you crazy and you will fail.
And I think what you're saying is that don't try and like all those 5 buckets. You can't have all of them going great at the same time. And it's about being conscious around which ones you're going for, which are important, and being conscious and not regretting the ones that you are compromising. That's one of the hardest bits, I find.
I have a no regret policy. You never want to look back and say shoulda, woulda, coulda, and think forward and say, am I going to regret this decision? And if the answer is yes, don't do it. And I did that my entire career. And I always told my kids, I will never miss a moment that matters to you. And I can promise you the meeting that I missed, the trip that I didn't take for work, they don't remember that. But my kids will always remember the things that I was at that was important to them. I still rose the ranks. I still did all those things. But that trip I didn't take for work or that meeting that I missed, nobody remembers that.
We beat ourselves up too much on these little things, don't we?
Yeah. It just doesn't, you figure it out. It doesn't, and there's no handbook that says you can't go to your kid's soccer game, or people think, or that you can't go on that date. You have one life to live.
Yeah.
Don't miss the moments that matter.
And I think, you were talking about this care package actually just making me think that LV, you're right. Everything's about conscious choice. Where do you want the benefits? And maybe there's lots of benefits people don't really need. So this care idea actually, and I like the fact you talk about not just even for parents, right? Because actually at LV, what we realized is because we're so much about women first, empowering women, we're supporting parents, actually we're at the risk of not being inclusive to other people within the company, right? So we've now introduced life leave. And it's literally whatever life throws at you, whoever you are, whatever it is that you think is important. If you need to take a bit of leave, take it. It could be you need to go and help your grandmother, or it could be, whatever it is, it's just life, right? And that's what we need.
If you design a company around the lowest common denominator, if you inclusively design your company, it will work for everyone. And that's how I designed my company. I designed it for, I designed it for the exceptions to work for the norm, right? So I didn't design it for women. I designed it for the caregiver. If you design it for care, it will work for everyone. It will only benefit the masses. Everyone will benefit then.
The name of this podcast is Skin Like a Rhino. It's that kind of extra thick skin that we as female entrepreneurs need to develop to get through all the naysayers and so on. Is there anything that kind of sticks out in memory as being?
Listen, you got to believe. When purpose meets passion, you're unstoppable. I was unstoppable because it didn't matter what everyone else. I didn't do it for everyone else. I did it for all these women that I didn't want to have to go through what I went through. I wanted girlfriends in business, and I wanted my daughter to not have to act like a man.
You make it sound so kind of obvious, like I've had this lived experience. I didn't want the same for my daughter. I wanted to do something. But many other people have had lived in experiences of adversity or something they weren't happy about, but it hasn't propelled them to go and, even in your words, change the status quo, right? A lot of people wouldn't even think about that or feel confident enough. Or there must be something else too, right? What is it in Shelley that makes her think in the morning she can just wake up and change the status quo, and which you have done, which is obviously is an incredible thing, but it's, I think you're also being a bit modest.
No, I didn't intend to do it. I did it. I didn't create the girls' lounge thinking it's going to become a movement. I did it because I didn't want to go to CES by myself. And I invited my girlfriends, and it felt really good, and then made them feel really good. And then we all paid it forward and it got sticky and sticky and sticky. And it took a long time. Trust me. Like, a lot of people hated the name. Women didn't want to be called girls. I mean, if I told you how many women said we're not girls, we're women. And I thought about that a lot, and they wanted me to change the name. But I thought, but I like being a girl. Go girl, girlfriends. And well, men never objected to being a boy in the boys club. And why do I have to pretend to be what I'm not? And it does make me sad. And why do I have to hide my emotions? And why do I have to act rough and tough? I am a woman, and I do push a baby out of my vagina, and I do get my period, and I do have menopause. And why do I have to pretend to be someone that I'm not? And I do lead differently than men. And I love men, and I love women, and we need both in the mix. Like, why can't we be who we are? Why do I have to pretend to be the guy? I don't want to lead like he leads. I'm sorry. I'm tired of apologizing. And if I'm wrong, then I don't want to be in business anymore, because I don't want to keep hiding me. And that was just my moment of truth. And either I'm going to win my way or I'm out, because I don't want to keep being someone that I'm not. And that's when I took the title Chief Troublemaker. I wanted permission to break every rule that makes no sense, because I was not going to succeed in business. And I wanted to go home for dinner with my children. So I started my own company so that I could be right. And that's what I decided to do. And so I needed to do that officially so that I could rewrite the rules of the workplace, so that women could be women and women could go home at a decent hour and take care of their children, and that men would also do that. And that is why today I am going to rewrite the rules of the workplace and change the equation and close the gap once and for all. Because if I don't do it, nobody's going to do it. And we all need to do that. And CEOs in Fortune 500 companies have to do it so that women can get into leadership, and that women can get on boards, and that we can talk about mental health, and we could talk about menopause, and that we could all have care at home, and that men could be vulnerable, and that we could stop being silent, and we could make the invisible visible. Like, it's not complicated, and it's not going to take 131 years. We're going to close it in 5.
Yeah, everything you've said it's so right, and yet it's so, all those issues. I mean, at LV we work in taboo issues, right? We're just working in pelvic floor health and pumping and women's health issues. But everything you've said, that nobody says that, but you've said it, and I understand it. For you, it's binary, right? Either I need to change this or I don't want to be in it. And thank goodness you are changing that. And I think particularly with women's health. I mean, you mentioned menopause as well. Like, these are issues, I think particularly for menopause, you're dealing not just with discrimination as a woman, and then health issue, which is seen in a very negative sort of, you're going through a period of potential weakness. Plus, you've then got the whole age dimension. at play as well. What's happening in the US? Like, are the women's health issues being taken more seriously in the workplace? And is it a matter of, again, women just rising up and talking about it and saying this is not something negative, this is just part of being a woman and you need to accept
also,
it?
being part of a man. Like, why is it that women have all these issues? By the way, women are resilient. We have babies. Men could never have a baby. What about our strength? By the way, I'm an amazing CEO. Like, what about our strengths? Like, why are there not more women as CEOs? When women run countries, there's less war. We need kindness in this world. Like, protect our children, our safety, our security. Like, we need more women in leading the world, leading companies. Like, what is happening right now, this would not happen if we had more women running companies and running the world, because we would be protecting our children and our future in a whole new way. Like, we would just say it like it is.
I agree with you on everything. And I suppose you talk a lot about language. And I think particularly in women's health, it's not even, you're right, it is about strength. Like, even words like estrogen are so sort of weaponized, right? Whereas testosterone is seen as something really positive and strong and virile. Like, all the language is just wrong when it comes to women's health, and as well, obviously, in the workplace.
It's crazy to me. Instead of the positives for everyone, why are we not using that as strengths? Women are resilient. Women are protective. Women are about safety, security, resilient, empathetic, compassionate, collaborative, communicative. I mean, the things that we do, we can multitask on steroids. I mean, it is remarkable what our capacity is. Where would men be without women? They can't even, it is.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. Women are so strong, right? Even physically, longevity, health-wise, so much that we do. I mean, I suppose just trying to end this talk, this conversation on a positive. I mean, my sense, maybe I'm too much of an optimist because I'm an entrepreneur, but it does even feel in the last 10 years, attitudes and at least the way we talk about gender equality in the workplace is changing. And definitely maybe 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but does it feel overall that things are moved in a positive way? Obviously, in great part because of the work that you're leading and others.
Well, it's we. And, yes, I am so excited about what's to come. I am hopeful, positive. First of all, AI is, to me, some people, people are skeptical. I am so positive, so proactive, so excited, because to me, it will democratize everything about, I think it is all about, democratization for an equitable future in every single way, from education, for health, racial equity.
I mean, because it'll expand access?
100%. I think everything about it is amazing. But also, I think it's all about equality as possible. And I think we all want it. And I am very, very excited about what's to come. I feel it. The energy is there. It is happening. And Davos it's electrifying. And that's actually a really good phrase.
So if you were to compare Davos this year to when you first went, how has it changed?
Amazing. I mean, it was standing room only, lines out the door. Every Fortune 500 CEO was with us in such a big way. And women were flooding the streets. So I love this. And I'm going to coin this phrase because of you. Equality was electrifying and energizing. And that's what it felt like.
That is so exciting. And we or the power of the pack, it's never been stronger for we as women, right, as it is right now. And it is electrifying. We are building momentum. There is a critical mass, it feels like, however much in parts of the world or in offices around the world or in the US or even here in London, women's rights are being violated. But overall, I do believe thanks to leadership like yours, Shelley, we are moving very much electrifying speed in the right direction. And
we're all
yes,
in
that
it
131
together.
years, we need to
We're all
close
in it
it.
together, which I think is the most exciting thing. And the power of collaboration is really important, and we're there. And I think that it's not about DE and I. It really is about collaboration and moving forward. But I do think it's about equality.
And I think also that's why LV was so keen and excited to be partnering with you as well, because our values, even though we're very much in the health and tech space, they're so aligned. So,
It's about
Shelley,
health and
thank
tech,
you.
by the way. We're going to do so much together, and we are so proud to partner together.
Absolutely.
I can't
Thank you
wait to
so
see you
much,
in
Shelley, for
person.
joining me today. I really appreciate it. It's been a great honour. Thanks for listening to Skin Like a Rhino. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to leave us a star rating. Your feedback means the world to us and helps others discover the podcast. Until next time.